lots of other people who aren't, and I didn't know about the redlining stuff until I started working at the health department. So it was like a real wake-up call for me as well.
I was just thinking, when you said this, we're not teaching our children this,
Yeah.
I think we are teaching them in very implicit ways. So when you juxtapose those photos, all I could think about was, well, interesting, that person with the grass probably owns their house.
Yes.
Right.
The next picture, we know that most of those people don't own their properties, someone else does.
Right.
But we don't talk about it in that way, so why should I value something if the person who owns the building does not value me? I think the other part that's consistently problematic in this country is we're constantly judging one race of people by another race of people. We're gonna constantly fail at that. So when the slide says, okay, we're judging the black people in the flatlands by the white people in the hills, there is the problem.
Yeah.
Every time we do that, we're going to show up with a deficit-based mentality, which is rooted in racism. So until we can say we're judging people by those people to the next measure, that's how real change is affected, not by judging me by someone else who isn't me. That's the crux of the problem that we don't want to talk about in that real way and call it what it is in every facet. So for me, that's the change effect that I'm waiting for people to buy into and move in that way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so I want to ask you then a question because I think you're bringing up a really good point. And I think what's hard about this stuff is that it's important to underscore that certain groups of people have not received fair treatment in our country and that has an impact on health. But to do it in a way where we're not setting up with comparison like you just described is something that I struggle with. So I don't know if you have a suggestion for how to get this kind of message across, which I think could influence the way policies and programs are designed in a way that doesn't fall into that pitfall that you just
I
described.
think the part that it's the implicit stuff. So when we say we're not teaching our children this, so much of what we learn from our models
Yeah.
and the patterns around us that's never spoken.
Right.
So what we're doing implicitly is saying everyone should aspire to be like white people. That in and of itself is problematic. They're wrong.
Yeah.
So when you say, I don't know what else to do, that has no longer going to be the narrative. That can't be the narrative. So every time I see slides like this, we're telling everybody else, I just othered you, here's what you should be,
Right.
here's what you should be. When white people change that narrative,
Right.
it makes it easier for everyone else to know that's not what we aspire to be. And I use those words not in a harsh way, but in a real way,
Totally.
because I'm using words that most people don't want to say out loud. We say it in our sofas amongst our friends and loved ones, but we don't say it in places like this because we fear that we're going to be held accountable because we're at work. And then we're going to be charged differently when we get back to our work. So until all those things are no longer what I call cultural brokering barriers, we're going to know these things, but very little is going to shift. Not just for us, but for me, it's our younger citizens who will be in charge of things later, because their lives really hang in the balance in a totally different way. So until we can change that narrative in actionable ways, not just with talk and feel-good moments, but in actionable ways that start small, that really, really start small, then I think things will change for all of us.
Well, again, I really thank you for that. And I think you're right. I think I commend you for disrupting it because that is what we need to do. And I think that everything you're talking about, all those dynamics that are at play are what have led us to the situation that we're in right now where health is not distributed equally across all populations. And I have heard that before from people that this comes across maybe as sounding like everyone should, we're making a comparison between blacks and whites and blacks should be more like whites. And I don't mean to say that. What I do mean to say is that everyone should have the opportunity to do and be who they want to be, and that's not the way it is in our country right now. So I think, and I think you're right, we teach people by example, and talking about it is the way to disrupt it. What you did was awesome. Thank you for bringing it up, and it makes me think about how to talk about this differently too.